Sorry.
No,
It's hot because it was cold.
Katie Vick style. Kevin brings the heat, and I bring the heat too, because we're talking about Friday the 13th, season 2, and it's going to be a fun one tonight. Hopefully everybody is in store for this, because we are the Graveyard Shift of Forgotten Television Shows, and we are bringing it this time on Nostalgia TV, Friday the 13th, season 2. Let's friggin' go.
And that's the news. We'll be back in a moment with an offer to our newest listeners right after this musical interlude.
Bastards are gonna own me.
Papa's getting wasted tonight.
I am completely out of ammo.
Cross my heart, smack me dead, stick a lobster on my head.
The situation has indeed worsened. You think?
And when I return, I'm gonna drink a bottle of scotch, as if it were Chicky von Richthofen's blood, and celebrate.
Afraid we're at an impasse.
You really are filthy.
And fine. Come upstairs and see my etching.
Kevin, dude, got a question for you, and hopefully you can answer it truthfully for me. Are you game?
I'm game.
Say it for Daddy.
I'm the luckiest little girl in the world.
Are you the luckiest girl in the world, Kevin?
I'm the luckiest little girl in the world.
The creepiest scene in this show, period.
So again, we were talking about it before the show. Like, someone posted barely legal pictures of Daphne Keene on Facebook.
Jesus Christ.
Questionably legal pictures of Daphne Keene on Facebook.
Very questionable.
Anyway, was not as uncomfortable as watching that scene was. Like, that gave me the willies. Like, bleh. People shouldn't talk like that. It's not okay.
Nope. And nobody wants to be your daddy, lady. You're a gold digger anyway.
No, man. Like, I think fucking necrophilia was funny. Clearly, last night was funny as hell. But, like, that's not okay. That's just weird and creepy.
That's very true. And in case everybody is wondering what the hell we're talking about, we're going to defer you to check out Deadwire Live, number 41 from last night, because spoiler alert, we're recording this the day after that instead of our usual swing. But that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in to Friday the 13th, season 2. Make sure you hit that like button on the way in and hit that subscribe button down below, because we're about to talk about one of our favorite shows from growing up from the late 80s. And Kevin, did you watch this one live again too, or did you end up catching this on like replay later on?
No, this one I most certainly watched while it was on, when it was in syndication, like its first syndicated airing. It was in my rotation, and there were a few episodes that I really remembered liking. Although I don't recall any of those from season 1. So I was like super paranoid, like, okay, so we watched War of the Worlds. That was crap. We watched Freddy's Dead or Freddy's Nightmares. That was pretty fucking good. So we're like, okay, how is this going to go? This could go either which way.
Yep.
Like, did we have the really good memories with the nostalgia goggles on or not?
Rose tinted glasses, everybody. Did it work or did it not work this time?
Yeah. So my general consensus of season 1 was I enjoyed it more than just about anything else we've watched on the show, save like anything that has like Bruce Campbell in it. Like, it was really fun, really good, classic TV, better than Freddy's Nightmares was, I think, for me personally anyway. 1,000 times better than War of the Worlds, but I didn't remember any of those episodes, save like maybe one.
Yeah, same. I think I remembered, what was it, 1, maybe 2 when we talked about season 1. This when we were
Yeah.
talking about that, I'm like, the episodes I remember are actually from this season, and half of them are in this first half of episodes that we're talking.
Yeah. I was like, woohoo, I'm finally starting to remember episodes. Like the
Yeah.
nostalgia glasses, like, didn't need to be fogged off at all. Like I remembered the episodes like, oh, okay, here it is. This is the one. And yes, I did really like it, and I do still really like it. So this season was like, it was pretty goddamn good as far as keeping up as entertainment value as just as good as season 1 was.
I would say so. I actually think they improved on the writing overall in general, and the
Mhm.
stories that they chose, because a lot of the themes would get dark at times. Sometimes they'd be a little more lighthearted and goofy, but they still felt like they tightened up the scripts. The dialogue with Jack and, you know, the entire cast just seemed to work out a lot smoother. So they definitely improved upon what they did in the first season. They had their formula down, and it definitely showed on screen because the chemistry between everybody was fan-damn-tastic. And I'm sorry, but John LeMay, you are the heartbreaker, because every girl you fell in love with died in this show.
To the point that Jack tells him to cool his heels in one of the episodes.
Yeah. I
Oh
was like,
man.
oh my God, we're doing this from the season 1 again, but this time it was getting even worse. I'm like, oh, dude, he's just gonna keep dying.
But
All of his
there's
girlfriends
no
keep
angst
broken.
between. Maybe that's why Mickey's kind of like, you know what? All right, fuck them. Keep going out with all those other hookers. That's fine.
They relatively laid off each other with the implied relationship between the two. They're
Yeah. And I kind of miss that. I get it.
yeah.
They don't want to make it like Greg and Mrs. Brady. But, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know. I miss that. But again, there was a new relationship in every episode. At least so far there has been. And that's okay, but when it got to Mickey's turn, you're just kind of like, oh my God, this guy's a fucking putz, and she's a Riri for even falling for him.
Yeah, she kept falling in love with like the super bad boys, and God, like,
Monsters.
yeah, monsters. I mean, I actually liked the last episode that was in. Jesus, which one was that? That was more like the Beauty and the Beast story with the Clayface guy who kept putting the
Yeah.
makeup on, the John Wilkes Booth episode. That one I really liked, but I'm like, at the very end, that's definitely very Beauty and the Beast, but at least he didn't die and the curse didn't really end. They just recovered the artifact, and he allowed himself to get put into a facility where he could be treated.
Yeah, he
Taken
gave
care of.
up
Yeah.
and admitted fault, basically. So like he chose love, and that hasn't happened yet in any of the episodes, has it? Like where someone just
No.
basically like gives up the artifact and chooses love instead, or chooses life instead of the artifact.
Yeah, it seems like we're heading towards more happier endings, but not all the time. The only other happy kind of ending we got was the Playhouse episode, where a lot of the kids were actually returned after being kidnapped or being thought lost.
Yeah, I
But that
remember
was
that.
still a weird ending, but all the kids did ultimately get returned. But they screwed over the mother,
Yeah, that was cool.
the deadbeat mom.
I liked that episode. I'll talk about at great lengths in general, but I did like the ending as a kid. I didn't like it as an adult, but I did like it as an adult. So, and by that I mean like the house should have just eaten the kids, and that's just the way it was.
No
That was cool. I
comebacks,
like
no
it was eating.
takebacks.
Kind of right. Like it used them for strength. Like they got absorbed into the house.
Yeah.
I liked that. It didn't need to give them back, but again, it was the 80s. They were pushing the whole homelessness thing and
Yeah, they were.
runaways, and you were waiting for Keenan Ivory Wayans to come across as a mailman going, message. They were really kind of putting it out there.
In living color.
In living color. Well, it was just like the first season where they had the homeless people in the park.
Yeah.
Where the lady was hunting them. Like that one was like so severely like, oh hey, that's a hot topic. Let's write about that.
Yeah.
This was kind of like that too.
Yeah, they
Runaway
certainly had a
Kid?
well they like to head up at times and just feel like, hey, let's just keep dipping back into the homeless and let's keep dipping back into these like people that have fallen on despair and they're living in basements or subterranean levels. It's like, how much longer are you going to
Morlocks.
keep falling into tropes like that? Because Phantom of the Opera was one thing.
Oh God. That was so bad. I did not like it.
That
did not
episode
like it.
actually irritated me to no end. It was like the
And I
first
am a
episode of this
huge-
season. I'm like, this sucks. I'm sorry, but I did not like this. And I actually remembered this from as a kid too.
I vaguely did. Vaguely. And I remember liking Robert Englund's Phantom of the Opera a lot more than this. Me like, why isn't
Same.
it as good as that? And I remember the music wanting to be the same, and it's not. Like they were very similar in nature, but again, I enjoyed the MGM movie much more.
Yeah.
But again, they had a bigger budget, and Robert Englund was the Phantom. So what are you going to do? But they were trying to adapt a very famous story and movie that was in the free market or public market that they could put in this TV series, and it worked for the budget that they had. But it was campy to a point because it was so very much the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think like, you could have done a bit better if you had planned it out a little more. It felt like this is one that they just kind of threw in at the last minute. Like, hey, we got to get this in. It's like, oh, dudes, you could have just skipped this as a script. Nobody would have missed it. And what are we talking about for a cursed object? It's just a freaking violin. Like, okay, I get it.
Well, I mean, you could have made it a little bit more interesting than just,
Yeah.
I
would have liked it if it was like the actual sheet music. Do something a little different.
Sheet music like the Necronomicon. It's written in human blood, or music was written in human blood and bound on human flesh. Something dope like that.
And that's the original score from Beethoven, and he could have used the music too. Like,
yeah, or the strings was instead of cat gut, it's actual, human intestine or stomach or what have you, something like that.
Somebody's a fan of Hannibal, the TV show.
I loved that so much. It was so cool.
It was so cool because they actually did that. Where they took a human body and they used like the strings for a cello.
They turned him into a cello. Oh God, It was so beautiful. And I'm still trying to get my wife to watch that. No, that just sounds weird.
Well, there is something to be said about all the gore this season so far. Like in these first 13 episodes, it is totally on par. I totally enjoy all of it when they do it. But when we're talking about the Phantom of the Opera episode, like the prosthetics were just kind of like, that's kind of lame. I'm sorry. You guys took the week off on that one.
Yeah. Like they're like, okay, throw some latex on it.
Yep.
Let it dry off. Okay, it's a little too flaky. That's okay. Spray it again with some water. We'll throw some lighting on there. It's fine.
Yep.
I don't know. It was just Phantom of the Opera in a dingy theater house instead of like a grand opera. So again, it had its moments of campiness. It had its moments of tackiness. The actress that was the main violinist, the damsel in distress, was not that convincing. She had no chemistry with Ryan whatsoever.
She wasn't very good, to be frank, in general.
No.
I was like, wow, this is a kind of a rare miss for this show, where I'm thinking, some of the actors you got on this episode are not great. They're actually holding back the story a bit because they can't act.
Because they can't act. Yeah, like I didn't care if he got with this one or not.
Oh my god, and he fell hard for this one too. And when she died, boy, was he a miserable screw job at the end. God. Oh, then let's fall in love with some wax form creature, which brings up another point is like beside Ryan can't keeping his dick in his pants, uh they certainly like to pull themes from like other movies at this time, like House of Wax, Waxwork, whatever you want to call it, Phantom of the Opera with Robert Englund. You could go down the list of like 4 or 5 other episodes. It's like, couldn't you guys come up with something a little more creative? And I'm not saying the episodes weren't good for a lot of these, but like Phantom of the Opera one was a miss, but the Waxwork one worked pretty good, I thought. And I liked how they at times would keep the cursed objects hidden for most of the episodes. You wouldn't actually know what they were until the very end, and I
Yeah.
liked that change of fact with the show because you wouldn't to totally understand. Like, okay, so what actually is going on? It was clear who the villains were up front, so they kind of moved things around, and I appreciated that change. Um, but just to go back to the point of they were definitely pulling ideas from other popular movies at the time.
Yes. Yeah. And knowing that, you go back and look at it and you're like, oh, okay, sure,
Yep.
sure. And that episode also had a little bit of Ghoulies 2 in it with the carnival and the falling in love with the carnies and stuff like that. And was there a bit of that in one of the Howling movies too? Or was that anyway?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that might have been part 3 or part 4.
Yeah.
No, that was marsupials. I haven't seen those in a long time. That's a good question.
Yeah, but I don't know. Again, it's not bad. It's still it fills the soul, but you're just kind of like, oh man, it slows down the binge when you've been watching so many other great episodes.
Yeah, no kidding. And would you say for the most part these first 13 actually like worked for you? Or what were you gonna say?
Yes. Yes. Oh, that I enjoyed the carnival aspect on top of the waxwork. Like the mixing of the two. I enjoyed that. Not just did you have the lore of the haunted what would you call it? Haunted ride for the carnival. Haunted house?
Yeah, ghost rides or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. So he's got that. He's got the lore of the killer. There is a killer there, so there is a slasher in this. So this is a slasher episode. And then you have the mystery of what, like you said, what object do they have? So they're not looking for a particular object. They're looking for his name in Uncle Lewis's codex. Like where could he have been? Whose name in all this fucking mess could have shown up in Uncle Lewis's codex? And then they finally find it and they're like, oh yeah, it was this thing. Okay. And then it was a weird, complicated story.
Yeah, they also seem to be like magnets for this kind of for all these cursed objects, whether they know about them in the book or not. They always seem to find them by one way or another. So this family is like totally cursed.
They totally are. Speaking of which, how did you like seeing Lewis come back again at the season premiere? Yeah, season premiere.
Yeah, it was just the first episode. I appreciated that, but I also feel like they left it open enough that it's not over. They're just saving that in their back pocket for when they need to bring Lewis back.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm starting to find that the Uncle Lewis episodes are as enjoyable as like the 6 episodes that Robert Englund's like. All about those episodes were about Freddy and Freddy's nightmares. Like it really kind of makes a difference where you're like, oh, okay, it's one of those again. Neat. You know, Uncle Lewis is here, but we're going to be battling him, or we're going to be part of that main long story.
It was the anniversary of his first, well, not his first death, but the first anniversary of his death. And so it gave him an opportunity to make good with the devil. And they certainly tried to show the devil and show his overall influence over the world and everything. But it was to be thwarted. I enjoyed that episode, but it felt like, you can't keep this up for a whole season. You definitely need to like move this along or only do like one more episode. And later on, when we hit other episodes that would be able to remotely tie into this, because there is a satanic cult later on that shows up and they're trying to rise Satan. It's like you had a perfect opportunity to have Lewis involved with this, even remotely, for like a 5-second scene where you feel like he's working between Satan and the Satan cult, and they don't even do it. I'm like, there
Yeah.
was an opportunity there to do at least a little something. So you always are reminded, hey, Lewis is around in the background. He's not gone and he's not forgotten.
Yeah, like just because they're a cult doesn't make them smart or anything like that. They just happen to worship Satan, but they could be being influenced by Lewis,
Right.
Being made to do stupid shit by Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. That is a missed opportunity.
Yeah. But for the most part, I wouldn't say there was too many missed opportunities, just a couple missteps so far. But I liked how everybody came back, and Robbie was looking fine this season. I loved her hair a little more tamed down, not so fiery red, but she still retained the red color that worked for her, and she looked like a damn smoke show this entire like first half. So I can absolutely see where Kevin and a few others got their love of redheads.
Yes, this looking back on this show in my life, I'm kind of like, oh, so answers so much now.
So this is where it started.
Yeah, certainly one of my first crushes was Roby. She's
I think even
absolutely
Skeeter
stunning.
said the same thing too.
Yeah, she's stunning to look at. She's stunning to watch. She's stunning to listen to. Whether she's talking in her native accent or speaking in another, or she's singing, she really is just stunning.
Yes, absolutely. And also her acting improved dramatically this season too. Like she felt a lot more comfortable in the skin as being
Yep.
her character, and she excelled at everything she did this season. I was pretty impressed by her actually.
I think they told her and John, you bitches are crying this season. And I don't mean like, oh, weepy here. You bitches are crying hard. Like
We're putting you
hard.
through the ringer
We're
this
going
season. Yep.
we're going for the Golden Globes and Saturns. But yeah, they did a really good job. It's not campy. They're actors. They did a good job and they showed it too.
Yeah, like any of the campiness you found from the first season is largely missing from this season. Granted, there are moments of campiness, but I'd rather have moments of campiness than whole episodes that are entirely campy.
The campiest thing you really got in the first season, I think, was the episode where you had the Mennonites or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
And the preacher.
That was a two-parter, baby.
The preacher that was having the weird midlife crisis and calling out to God. That was so community theater. It was amazing.
Beyond community theater. That was like community college level.
Oh God, why?
Why? Oh my God. Oh my God.
The director's probably like, dude, tone it down. Tone it down.
Maybe that was the toned down performance from the original performance on the first like 5 takes. Like, dude, get this dude some coke and let's cool him out.
We don't have the editing budget for this shit. Reel it back.
Yep, one more take and we got to move it along, buddy.
And I know you don't like watching the Harley Quinn show, but that reminds me of Alan Tudyk playing Clayface, playing another character. It's just so,
oh my God,
so over the top and dramatic.
Yeah,
he's going to be the shark. Anyway. Oh, so yeah, this
Yeah.
season was a lot more serious. There was a lot more death. Like
Yeah.
people die in every episode. That's just the way this show goes. But there was a lot more episodes like you got last season where like Jack's love dies. This happens to Ryan, like you said, every episode just about. Or
Jesus
if
Christ.
if Nikki finds a guy where she finds is interesting, he turns out to be a murderer or a psychopath or what
Or
have you. Like
monster.
nobody has any luck in this show, and they're really starting to learn and accept. Well, they've already learned it. They learned it by the end of the first season. Now they're accepting they're a family and all they have is each other. And the best
Right.
that they have is each other. And it works. Jack is their dad and he loves them both very much. And Chris Wiggins shows it as an actor. Like
Yeah.
totally sells that as a dad figure.
Yeah, the chemistry between all three of them is absolutely fantastic. And it brings a lot of gravitas to every scene that they have. And so when there are emotional moments, they're even more impactful, even more so than the first season. And as much as the I'm falling in love, I really like this one, Jack, from both of them, as much as that starts to get a little old, you still feel the heart pains of like, they're trying to not be lonely. They're trying to find something more to this life than just what
What
they
they're
have to
doing.
do and what they're doing. And I greatly appreciate that. And that's the big theme I see from this show. And it's like everybody can relate to that. There's a reason why this show charmed and endeared itself to a lot of people, especially these first two seasons. It's pretty clear to me anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Between the creativity of it, the signs of the times, the satanic panic at the time, which we were getting towards the end of that at this point. This is what, 88? I think we're 1988, 89.
Yeah, it was 87 to 88, 88 to 89, and then 89 to 90 for the three seasons.
Yeah, so we're really getting towards the end of the satanic panic. We're getting more towards the end of whatever goes in the 1990s. But it was still very much a thing. Spirituality was still very interesting to people. Like people loved horror. They loved organic horror. Religious and mythological horror is more organic, I think.
Psychological, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like you believe it a little bit more because in the back of your head you grew up Catholic. So, you know, that might actually be a thing. You don't know that. You've never seen it before, but the kid in you believes that it could be.
Right.
And this show really capitalized on that, and it had creative writing that took, like you said, not so great stories, and they incorporated it with the signs of the times, and they made something fantastic. They made something better than the other shows comparable at the time, and nothing was really comparable. There are other horror anthology shows, but I don't think they were as good as this per se, outside of say like Tales from the Crypt.
That's true.
Because Tales from the Crypt is really it's in a league of its own. But
My
this,
God, it
like,
is.
So far, like this has led my favorite of the Thursday and Friday night frights that we've watched so far. And I know we've still got Monsters to get through and Tales from the Crypt, or not Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side and Twilight Zone. And I remember those being good, but this just has that family thing. This is almost like a comic book where as a kid you could see yourself being in this family, going after these weird artifacts, ghost hunting, if you will. And it really works, especially if you like haunted houses. This is on par with it. There's no ghosts. Well, I guess Lewis, but there's not a whole lot of ghosts to this, but it's a very haunted series. It will give you goosebumps in certain areas when it's not making you giggle with cheesiness.
Absolutely. I remember the show gave me like some fun chills back as a kid, and it always stuck with me. That's why I remember like certain episodes like the most, because it clearly like struck a chord on some sort of fear level. And it was not to the point of like you couldn't enjoy it off of the TV because of the restrictions on TV. and it
Mhm.
was syndicated, so there's only so much you could get away with. But if it was in a movie theater, it would have been even more so. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that they had to show some restraint and allow this to be on TV, because you could get to the spooky, you could get to the creepy, you could be unsettled, you could have the atmospheric horror that everybody really likes, and tell actual stories with some moral themes to it that would land with a lot of people. And the show
Mhm.
absolutely delivered it this season. It started in the first, it absolutely improved on the second season and really excelled.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they didn't do everything that they wanted to do.
Right.
Like Rashid specifically, Rashid was supposed to have a much larger role, assisting Jack and the kids, and they kind of reeled that back. I don't know if they just didn't have the actor on hand, the availability, if there were just test screenings that didn't work out. I don't know, but his
I would
character
think it
wasn't
was
really
the budget
necessary.
personally.
Was it? Okay,
I
that could
would think
probably
so.
be
I
it.
don't know, but my guess would be schedule and budget. If somebody really had a problem with it, they just would have recast the role for somebody else.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. I suppose that's true. But I liked what they did. They kept the formula the same as they did in the first season.
Yeah.
It wasn't broke, so they didn't try to fix it.
Not yet, anyway.
Well, that was John's fault, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the details of that. I would love to interview them at some point in the future and find out, like, was he just not happy with the show? Was he wanting to do the movies? Was he wanting to cross over to the silver screen? What? But golly, I don't want to see this without Ryan.
It's not
he was
the
kind of a
same.
he was kind of a hero to me as a kid. And I know I'm 44 years old, almost 45 at this point, so it really doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But I watch this and I'm 8 years old again, looking up to these characters.
As I'm only just a couple years older than you, and I felt the same thing as a kid. I'm like, this is one of my first like heroes outside of, say, like something sports or anything else. At this time, I wasn't even watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it was on at the same time. I was more watching like
Yeah.
normal shows like Night Court. I'm going to say Married with Children. That's not really a normal show, but it's a typical sitcom. I was watching sitcoms. I was not watching much sci-fi and horror other than what was on with Friday the 13th, Freddy's Nightmares, which I never got to see, but I did see War of the Worlds at this time because my dad wanted to see that. So I would see these shows, and I would basically just watch wrestling cartoons and just normal sitcoms. That's what I watched growing up. So stood out for me because I wasn't even to horror at this time. So you're talking like 89, like fucking Phantasm 2 hadn't even come out. Wait, did Phantasm 2 come out? My dad got Phantasm 2 on like 91, 92. That's about the time I really got into horror per se as far as movies go. Because that shit scared the fuck out of me. But, up until that point, this was my idea of scary. I never watched any of the Friday the 13th movies before this show. I never watched like any of that before this show. My experience was Gremlins, Swamp Thing, maybe A Nightmare on Elm Street as far as horror goes. And Gremlins really isn't a horror movie. Don't tell my wife that. She won't watch it because she doesn't care. She thinks it's a horror movie anyway. But like Friday the 13th, John, like you just said, he
What do you ask?
was a hero to me too.
Yeah,
That's right.
truly. Like as a kid, I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be a ghost hunter because we grew up. Okay, like the Conjuring movies are all fucking popular as shit right now. You and I grew up before those movies when those people, before they were disproven as frauds.
Amityville.
Yeah, it was still a thing. Like Amityville was still fresh. We were still just a few years outside of that, or 10 years outside of that. Like they hadn't really pointed out the fact that nothing happened in 10 years after. But anyway, like Ed and Lorraine kind of passed away into the 90s as well. But this was a real Ed and Lorraine Warren situation that we could watch. They had the same going after cursed artifact. It was very much based on their made up museum that they had in their basement, which is totally a cool fable. I fucking love it. Like the Annabelle Comes Home movie, really, really cool. It's the only one of the great Annabelle movies that I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Or it's the only one Annabelle movie that I really enjoyed because it's based on that legend of their basement. And that's what that was to me as a kid, was the legend. So like this is just like that, but doesn't have that tarnishment of being a fraud. Like it's just it's fiction, so it can't be that. Like
Exactly.
Ed and Lorraine turned out to be a disappointment because they were real people pretending to be heroes that were just frauds. They were good storytellers and bad actors.
Sounds like a Blair Witch Project.
Yes. Yes.
Score points for us.
I threw the map in the creek.
Fucking dumbasses. Oh my god.
Anyway.
Yeah. But no, when Ryan, we will talk about it next on our next episode when we cover the back half, because Ryan does leave at the end of the season, and season 3 incorporates cousin, I don't remember his fucking name. And all I remember is watching it and everybody else watching it feeling like this isn't our show anymore. It still is. Everybody else is great, but this cousin they brought in and the new cast member was just not a good fit. And it sounds like, from what I remember from the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, and I'll rewatch it ahead of season 2, is they understood, like, after a few episodes that they knew it was going to be a problem, and it was probably the last season.
Having that character change?
Having that character change, and the ratings were dropping because of it.
Oh, so
So they kind of knew it wasn't going to work out. They were hoping it would, but ultimately it got dropped.
Well, that fucking sucks. And they don't.
I would have just brought John back, been like, hey, how many zeros at the end of this check, and how much more creative input do you want?
They were never going to do that. I mean, let's look at everything. Of course they should have. This was great television, but they didn't care about what was great television back then. They didn't.
No, I know it was a different industry back then. But
yes, and golly, like being on television was not a good thing for actors. Like this was still a time where like you wanted to be a movie star. If you were on TV,
the movie actors wouldn't even touch a TV script in the slightest. That's why when Bruce Willis went to movies, he was doing TV shows like Moonstruck, and then he does Die Hard, and he never turns fucking back.
Nope.
Here's Brosnan, Remington Steele. The second he becomes James Bond, that shit's fucking over. Just saying.
Yeah, pretty much. Like very, very few actors go backwards. And some are lucky enough to go back and forth. There are some actors that can do whatever the hell that they want. Yeah.
Like Charlie Sheen. I mean, regardless of what you think of him, dude was a movie star who went to TV, and he stayed in TV, and he can go back to movies if he wants to. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
Probably because he charges way too much and he wants too much Coke in his trailer.
Coke.
That's winning.
Hookers, whatever. Coke filled with hookers.
Richards.
HPV. No, they've got HIV. They
And,
have the
AIDS, Jades, everybody. And you know what that is, everybody? That is totally evil.
Evil events from evil causes spring. Aristophanes said that.
He did say that.
It's true. I was there. He was like, yo, you know what? Whatever the fuck Jack just said. Yeah.
Dude, you're so old.
You're not going to miss all that.
Must be awful getting old,
The older I get, the more I look like Jack. I just noticed that.
I know.
Too. And I'm just kind of like, fuck me. My beard.
Especially with that
gray. I've got no
freaking look.
hair.
It reminds me of like one of my father-in-law. Oh my god. It's just that look over the eyeglasses. I'm like, I'm so gonna be doing that too. My dad does it to me all the time too. I'm like, God, that's a great clip. I need to make it.
When I was running my friends' coffee shops down south, I would creep out my employees because they'd come walking up to my office and be standing in my peripheral while I was counting cash at my desk.
Right.
And I would just look at them from the side of my eyes without turning my head because I was counting cash. So I would just look at them and they could see my eyes move, but not my head. And they would, God, that's gross. And like
Freak
start
'em out.
gagging. It's like,
It's called the side-eye dumbass. Figure it out.
I'm busy. What do you want? Jesus.
Yeah, right. I was
You're
assistant
lucky.
manager once too.
You're
I
lucky I
had
could
to
do
deal with
that.
it. Yeah.
Anyway, made me feel like that the old lady on Sing.
I have
Miss
no idea
Crawley.
what you're talking about. I haven't even watched that.
Oh my God, Sing's amazing. The first one's great.
I'll
The-
take
ju-
your word for it.
Just for the old lady, it's the gecko that you know, because you know how geckos have their eyes that can go in different directions. The old lady, her eyes broken, so the one eye goes in different directions, but one's constantly going up.
I'll make that lazy eye go straight, bitch. Mm.
She's fucking funny as hell. She's
Oh my god.
anyway, yeah. So this movie or this show, so we were talking about we got to episodes that we started to remember, and
Yeah.
I had to look ahead because I was kind of like, well, I remember, got excited when we got to and now the news, because that was the first episode that we've gotten to so far where I was kind of like, oh shit, it's this one. Okay. And this one I remember being super excited about it as a kid because you see the radio in the opening credits.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, it's that thing. So as a kid, you're kind of like, oh, well, now I'm getting the story to this thing in the credits. Like it's kind of like you love
Easter egg.
getting that the Easter egg, the legend, the mythology to it. It was a neat kind of factor to it. I loved that as a kid. I loved the intro. I loved the fake store that they have, just kind of like what we were talking about with Spawn in the first episode or the first season, where they're in the museum that they've got built that's supposed to be all the Easter eggs. I loved that as a teenager, just like I loved this as a kid. I love it as an adult now. It's
God, I play
camp,
the intro every
it-
time on Netflix. I skip intros for just about every damn thing I could possibly skip an intro
Yes.
on, but this one I don't because I love watching it. And to your point, I love those little artifacts and seeing that radio. I'm like, hey, that's cool. If they had made that a point of every season to do it, like maybe 2 or 3 of those instruments or items in the store from the credits into an actual episode, I think that might have been an extra special perk for everybody to be like, when are we going to get the one with the skull in the mirror? When are we going to get the one with the chandelier that breaks? I'd almost do the chandelier as like the final episode. And I know this is getting like way the hell ahead, but I'd make that the chandelier that totally traps Lewis, and you smash it and he dies permanently. And it ends everything. It breaks the curse. It breaks freaking everything. That's always been my long fan theory about how the show could have properly ended.
There was a lot that they could have done, and budget be damned. Like that was their Achilles tendon the entire time. Like,
yeah,
the Sign of the
they wanted
Times.
to work in Jason's stuff, but they never really did. Other than I counted the machete at in like the second episode, but
horror was dying once you got to 1990, 1991.
No
like,
shit.
They really, the politicians really wanted to kill horror on the silver screen and on TV. And they did.
In real life.
Yes, they did for a good long time. Like you stopped seeing good slasher movies for a while.
Okay, for a long time.
Yeah, like really good
10 years, it
horror
was really like 5.
in a way.
Yeah.
Parental advisory went on everything. Most scary movies were now PG-13, but weren't as good as say things like Insidious or Conjuring.
Right.
Like it was not a good time for horror, and it was thanks to the politicians.
Right.
I won't say her name, Tipper Gore, but parental Tipper Gore and her dumbass husband that invented the fucking internet.
Bitches.
It's just so we could, but you bless his heart. Now we all have free porn. So
Thanks, Al. We appreciate you inventing the internet and access to free prawn.
Free
We'll
prime.
see you all on Twitter.
If only.
If only.
But then what else did I remember from this one? Was there anything that was like super duper ingrained? I don't think. I remember the radio, and then once we got to the end, and I had to stop because I was binge watching super fast. I wanted to get done the day before we were going to record.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah, but the last 2 episodes, like the second to last one, the Playhouse, I wanted to pay attention because this was one that I very specifically remembered liking as a kid and like it triggering my imagination. And I wanted to watch it in the dark so I could see it with no glare on the screen, but not have my kids screaming.
What?
And I actually got to do that. Yeah, right? Like how weird would that be to do my homework and actually get to pay attention to it? Craziness. Like I actually do this professionally.
Crazy, I tell you. Being able to watch a show without distractions. God damn, Kevin. What do you think we do around here? Professional work?
Professional work and fees up like reasonable assessments.
And if you survive, please come again.
Please come again. But anyway, so yeah, I'll back up a little bit. I had to put the Funhouse as my background because I loved this as a kid. This sparked my fucking imagination so hard because the Playhouse from the outside looked like a haunted house. It was a rundown, tattered Victorian house, but like 1/8 the size.
Right.
When you went inside of it, it looked like a derelict church, like
Yes.
a creepy, poorly lit derelict church where light's only coming through the fucking stained glass. And your imagination is pushing all this. And at 8, 9 years old, like I'm doing pretty good with this. I'm really enjoying it. And then you get inside the house, in the house itself, and it's this crazy Art Deco fucking place.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that at the time, but I really liked it. I liked the checkered. I liked the stairs coming out of the wall that go from nowhere to nowhere. I thought that was amazing. I lived right next to the Winchester Mystery House growing up as a kid, which is Rosebud.
Cool.
Yeah, so like that was in my knowledge that it made sense to me. I knew what that was. I was like, this is so fucking cool. Like everything just like lit off synapses in my imagination. And then they dress like Dracula. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Well, when I was watching this episode, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching that episode from Farscape with Durka, the vampire guy, and they do like this kind of little playhouse kind of style. Just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, oh man, they were going. But at the same time, you have to remember this is from a kid's point of view. So Dracula's cool to a kid in the 80s. Lord knows that was my favorite thing in the 80s.
God, I hated half that shit back then. I mean, everybody loves like Lost Boys, and I'm like, fucking movie's overrated.
No, I don't like Lost Boys. I was always a Bella fan. I always really loved Bela Lugosi, Frank Langella.
The classics, yes.
Yeah, and Christopher Lee. Those were my 3 guys.
Yeah.
Lost Boys was a soundtrack. I liked it. It was the fact that it was filmed at home in Santa Cruz, the boardwalk. But then again, so was Killer Clowns.
Yep.
So was Magnum Force. Yeah.
Magnum Force. Ooh, jackpot, Kevin.
Yeah, dude, he fucking he tosses a bad guy or shoots a bad guy off a fucking roller coaster, and he falls down into a what do you call it? Merry-go-round, a carousel that you see on Lost Boys also. But in real life, that carousel is like 40 yards away from the fucking thing. So it's like,
That's good
damn.
aim.
Yeah, he threw that guy far.
Superman could have done better.
Yeah. So, but then again, I enjoyed all the concepts from this episode. I enjoyed the haunted house. I enjoyed the kids. Of course, these were I cannot think of their names. The young boy that played Russ in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and the young girl that plays the daughter in Mrs. Doubtfire. But anyway, they were the two kids in this episode. They did a great job. They're suckering other kids to be food for this house that takes care of them. And it gets to a point where, yeah, the house needs to be fed and they have to choose, do you feed the house and continue to sit on your throne here? Or do you break its curse and free everybody? But then you have to suffer real life like everybody else does. And so the kid basically has to accept real life to save his sister and get his mom arrested by social services and all sorts of fun shit. Save the rest of the kids. the boyfriend that gets arrested. When they got the boyfriend arrested for kidnapping all the other kids, I was kind of like, yes, fuck that guy.
Total jackpot. That was a good episode, and I got the one I remembered most as a kid that I enjoyed watching again was the bee episode.
The bee episode, yeah.
That one always like stuck with me, and the second it started, I'm like, I love this episode. It's a favorite of mine because it's straight up. This guy knows exactly what the hell he's doing. He didn't just luck into it. He got the cursed item, and he was all on board almost immediately with, hey, I'm going to do this to screw the people the fuck over. I don't give a shit about anybody or anything but myself. Because most of the villains in this, there's something you can there's some humanity in there somewhere. The beekeeper was just straight up a dick from the word go. I'm like, now this is a villain I can totally get into not liking at all. And it made him a lot more memorable. So I've always remembered that bee episode.
Yeah, like he was manipulating everybody from the start.
Everybody.
He was kind of like Ursula, where he smiled at you like, sure, I can help you. Helping people is what I do. But, he placed you in a position that was going to be beneficial for him later on in the future.
Exactly.
Like, oh, okay. This guy's a real fucking douchewad. I like him.
Him. He's got the cursed item and he's using it to his full advantage and he's using it for a long-term game. It's like, how the hell are you actually going to get this particular guy? Because he seems a little too smart to just slip up and get arrested or whatever.
Right. And the fun thing was the little sprinkle they put on top for him as an actor, I think, is the actor took just a little bit of joy in the pain that he was causing people, that the bees would sting. Like he just really enjoyed it. Like he was causing people the physical pain before he would cause them the mental pain that was going to like destroy them later. And he loved each and every phase of that pain that he was causing these guys. And God, there was no stopping him. Like he was a step ahead of everybody.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I just, that's something that really stuck with me. And watching it again just reminded me how good that episode really was. And I'm also
terrified of bees.
Yeah, so am I. I don't mess with that.
But then again, in 1988, what was another really huge hot topic fucking subject in the news at that point? The killer bees.
They're here, everybody. Come to get us all.
Yep. And you live right where they're at too, motherfucker.
I don't have too many around here.
Ugh.
I'm fine out here. Arizona.
Yeah. Anyway,
You said Alaska earlier. It's like, no, it's Arizona, bro.
I'd rather go to Alaska. It's too cold for anything like that to live.
Good point.
Everyone's like, but you can get eaten by a bear. I'd rather.
Well, if you want to get eaten around here, you go find a coyote.
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 Oh, well, you put the peanut butter on yous.
That's true. Give it a little lick and a little nip. Yeah, everybody will be all right. You know what they all need, Kevin? They all need their daddy.
Say it for Daddy.
I'm the luckiest little girl in the world.
That was such a disturbing episode. Like, not a disturbing episode. It was a boring episode, to be perfectly honest.
Relatively, yeah. The 13th hour.
Yeah, anytime they fuck with time, you're just kind of like, get on with it.
Yeah, this one, the plots tend to drag down when it's time travel or they're messing with time in general.
Yeah, and this lady was a gold digger with a sleazeball, and you know she's gonna like. It's a trope. It was a huge trope, and you knew how it was gonna go the moment it started. And it was kind of boring because you knew that already, and you didn't care how you didn't have that wonder how is it going to go. It was like telegraphed its punches from the very get-go. Like you knew how the episode was going to go as it started, as it traversed along, and you couldn't wait for it to end, and it finally did, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm awake. Oh shit, I guess it's time for War of the Worlds.
Shit, what episode are we talking about, Kevin?
Kinda. I don't like the time travel episodes. Like they do travel in time in the 13th episode, which they did in the 13th episode in season 1. But it wasn't nearly as bad as season 1's 13th episode.
Okay.
Like, that's where they go back in time and they meet Bram Stoker and his wife, and they're in black and white. Yeah, they've got the over-gaudy vampire, which you're just kind of like, oh gosh.
Right.
This was a little different.
Like
this they had a guy. Yeah, they had a guy that bought this lantern and had slides from the Civil War. It was a little bronzish, but you could probably, you know, if you don't clean it, turn it green. Sure, I'm sure. Put a little symbol on there. Yeah.
Little Sharpie.
But what he was doing is that would have made my next comment really interesting. He would put slides from the Civil War and like project from the lantern these slides from the Civil War. And if he killed somebody in the vicinity of the projection, he could use that projection as a door through time to that moment. So he would collect their artifacts in time and bring them back to the future and sell them.
Yep.
And it was a lot better than chiming out who Dracula was. A lot better. But it was still just kind of like, this is getting old. The whole time travel thing, it stopped them from being able to just grab the artifact and take it back to not the locker, the vault. I'm sorry. They couldn't just grab it, take it back to the vault. They needed to get Ryan back into the proper time again, which we'd already done in the 13th hour. Ryan gets stuck outside of time.
Yep.
So they did it twice in the season so far. I hope they don't do it a third time. Or a fourth.
Hey, if they do it in the next season, as long as they get rid of the other cousin, that'd be all right by me.
Their cousin Shmuley.
Yup. Some good episodes. Was there any you didn't like, Kevin?
I
mean, we kind of talked about it briefly at the beginning, but
other than the 13th episode, the voodoo one, maybe. I know we didn't talk about that, so that's probably a good indication that I didn't care for it as much.
That one was okay, I guess.
It
They
was
tried to
okay.
interject a bunch of like new mythology, and I'm like, I'm not feeling that.
They should have not had a white guy with a voodoo mask.
Kinda.
That kind of killed it for me because it's like, dude, do you really think this voodoo queen's gonna fucking call you master? And the fact that a black chick is calling you master is a little cringe, like even for 1988.
Well, when the name is Warren Davis, like how much more vanilla can you get with that?
Oh yeah, and like he's already spent his dead dad's estate money, and like it had interesting points to it, but there was more cheese to it than there was enjoyment for me in that one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That was just the second episode too, after the first one of Doorway to Hell with Lewis trying to come back. And go ahead.
Which was also cheesy, but God help me, I loved it. This when they have sets or they have to do things like go to hell, they will have sets that are way beyond their budget. So they will have no background, black background with a white light or a red light shining down with mist. And the
Okay.
rest is all up to your imagination, and it works. I liked it.
Yeah.
And it was cheesy because there's like this paper mache tree that Lewis is always like walking around from behind in hell, like
I'm gonna get you, you evil
then,
little things.
it was so fun. It's so cheap,
Lewis was
but
a
it's
good
so
creepo.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll never watch Predator the same way again because he's in that, and it's like, oh
Wait,
no.
he is? Who is he in that one?
He is the general that
that
Dutch talks to at first, and then he points out that Dylan's there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that now.
You're welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Yes. And then what else? The oh no, that was and now the news, the psychiatrist.
Episode number 3. So we're on our episode breakdown, everybody, in case you haven't noticed. We might have jumped ahead a little bit, but we'll gloss over those again as we go through.
Well, I was gonna say the guy that kills her, the inmate that was incurable, was Eric Bauza, the Beast from X-Men. So
oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, okay. He's
There's
in
some
it
good
again.
cameos then that I never picked up on.
Yeah, so far he's the only X-Man that I've noticed in this season so far. But there was like 3 or 4 X-Men in the last season.
Okay.
Including
that,
Professor.
That's right. No more I think about that.
Yeah.
Man, I liked In the News. That was one of my favorite episodes, and I remembered that as a kid too.
And now, the news.
I don't know. It's just that form of media you don't see anymore. It's ancient. It's almost
like,
just
you're
as
not getting
haunted
that
as
on
the
your
show.
cell phone.
Not unless I'm listening to Orson Welles. No.
Right. God, I love the ending
Which
of
I
that
occasionally
episode too.
do. Yes, where it's like calling out to them, like, "Hey, new customers, we've got a deal for you. We could
could
stop
get you-
all this madness really quick."
Yeah, we can get you
like
all
it
the
offers,
items for
like-
no stress as long as you fulfill certain prerequisite requirements, and then they just toss the radio between the two, and I'm like, that actually would have been funny to hear the explanation on how they do that. You need to kill Jack, you need to kill such and such and such and such, you need to kill like 5 people, and all this could be over with in a week.
Everyone sends their return items back, like, we didn't want it, sorry.
Yep, it's all good, we don't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
All the hundreds and hundreds of items, Jesus,
that they sold that week.
They're gonna need a better vault or a bigger vault.
Now, this is a question for next week, I'm sure, but would this work today?
I think so. I don't really see how this wouldn't work as long as they maintain like the same sort of quality of writing and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, of course, some things would change, but I'd set this back in like the 80s / early 90s. Like, keep it in that era because that's when there was certain magic to everything. You try and do it now, it's like, well, what are you trying to work in there? You're going to try and work on some messaging. You're going to try and work in, hey, we got security cameras and cell footage, but nothing ever captures a ghost, so you're all screwed anyway.
Yeah.
No, just, I would say it's got to be era appropriate, and I think it could be done. But I would just call it fucking Curious Goods at this point. I would never call it Friday the 13th, the show again.
Yep. Never, ever, ever, ever.
That should have been the subtitle for this show. Friday the 13th, Curious Goods.
Yeah. I would just reboot it. Call it that. And hell, make John and Roby executive producers, let them come in, for 1 or 2 episodes throughout the season. It could be a really good show. It could be a good continuation. But the problem is people don't believe in anything anymore. So it's hard to write about mythology without people rolling their eyes.
Be like, this isn't Blair Witch Project or The Fourth Kind.
I don't want to have to use my imagination. That's hard. Show me violence.
Yep.
That's not what this show was. That's
you
not
want
what
that? Go watch UFC, everybody. Jeez.
Kind of, yes. Yeah. So this show requires your imagination. It requires your engagement to have fun. And it will reward you for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, rewarding you like a coin. Tails I live, heads you die.
That was
the cult episode with the satanic cult.
I guess that one was, I can't even call that one unenjoyable.
I actually really liked that one, and I did not remember much of that one other than I remember the coin flip.
The coin flip was not all that in a bag of chips for me. The raising of the dead Satanists I thought was cool.
Right.
Like that part I thought was cool. That should have been integrated more so with Lewis. Like he should have known all those people or had
what I thought.
Relations to all those people somehow. Or been a stoolie that got them fucking killed. Who knows?
Yeah, that would have been funny too.
Because that's most certainly something Lewis would have done.
Hey, they didn't follow my instructions. They're the ones who screwed up. They're the ones who fucked everything up. Time to send them all back to hell. You need to let me go now.
Yeah, you need to let me go now. And then I'll be back to get you and your dog too.
And your pretty dog too.
With Rashid.
Rashid. Oh man, after that one we had Symphony in B pound hashtag. I don't even know what the hell that means in musical lyric writing.
Sharp.
And we already talked about that one. That one's pretty freaking lame. It's basically Phantom of the Opera for Friday the 13th, the TV show.
And the acting was as flat. It was
terrible.
Flat. Yeah. On all ends.
John and Roby certainly tried their best to carry this episode. It just wasn't enough.
They were really funny together. Like teasing Ryan about wanting to learn about symphony was really funny.
Oh yeah, sitting down with the records, that was really funny.
Yeah, and Ryan's complete like lack of giving a shit to Roby's fucking or Mickey's fucking with him or teasing him was just spot on funny. It really was. Like, tease all you want, girl. I'm learning. Yeah.
Yeah, you're learning so you can get close to some girl that you hope to bang, and you end up banging her within 5 minutes of that particular scene.
Did he?
No, it was more like 10 or 15, but yeah, he slept with her. She was so emotional after one night. Then they woke up the next morning completely naked, and then she finds out that her former lover is still alive and is completely torn on. Do I join with Ryan or do I join with my original boyfriend? It's a total soap opera episode. It's a bit on the lame side, but I'd still watch it if you haven't seen the show before, just to say you saw it.
Yeah, but soap operas are addicting as shit. They are.
Especially when Marlena gets possessed by the devil.
Damn right. Excuse me.
You're excused, Kevin.
I'm a huge Days baby. I can't deny that.
General Hospital, Knots Landing. Come on, Kevin. You know
Jingle Horse
what's up.
Pistol.
Lonesome Dove.
Chocolate.
Dark Shadows.
Oh yeah.
Dark
Hell
Shadows.
yeah.
Next episode, Master of Disguise. This is what I call the Clayface episode of the bunch. And this one is really good. And, you know, Mickey totally falls in love with the actor. It's like, God damn it, girl. Keep it in your pants.
This was very much like you said, it's very much Clayface, but they also kind of took that element of the Rocketeer where Timothy Dalton is the bad guy actor that everyone's supposed to like, and then he sees the young actress and gives her a chance, but he really wants something, and he's dastardly. So I mean, it was kind of like that, but not unenjoyable. It was probably more so enjoyable than that aspect of the Rocketeer, to be perfectly honest. And that is, as a Clayface fan, I think adding the Clayface element really helped, actually. Making Roby wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt, wanting to help him as a human being and treat him as a human instead of a monster, which he'd become, was much more interesting than what they had been doing, what their formula had become. And that was killing the monster by the end of the episode every episode. Yeah, they didn't do that at all. She found the man. The man was broken, but she found the man again.
Yeah, and I appreciate like the Beauty and the Beast aspect to it. I did enjoy the ending where we got something of a bit different, where she still felt sorry for him, she still had feelings for him, and he ultimately turned himself in, and the cursed artifact was resolved. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that's actually pretty damn good. You made up for the last episode for sure. So up until this point, you're feeling like, okay, we got a wash between two episodes. One sucked and one did not. It's because Robbie can actually handle the freaking romance action scenes. Sorry, John. She did a much better job handling all that chemistry with everybody.
I don't know. I thought
John. It's hard for me to say that, but as far as like romantic interests in this show, it's a little bit easier to see, Mickey falling in love with people rather than, Ryan constantly following whatever is walking his way with a skirt. John, we know you're a pimp, Betty.
She was never falling in love with me, so it doesn't matter.
Same.
I'm spiteful.
Yeah, you're totally spiteful.
Yeah, I've got that Phantom of the Opera gig.
Phantom.
Like, I really liked Phantom of the Opera. It's one of my favorite stories, and I didn't like that episode. So that goes to say something.
Yeah.
Like, I've read the book. I have every version of the movie. I've seen the stage play. I have.
We all have.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah. I like that. And this was not good.
Well, if that's not good, there's always some wax magic, Kevin. That is episode number 7, where they go to the carnival with the wax models. And you end up finding out that the big twist is the girl's a wax creature and she's the one killing everybody. Big spoiler alert.
So she was the wax figure. There wasn't two of them.
Correct.
Okay.
I think what was used was just parts to replace or repair the original model.
Gotcha. Because I remember, like, he told her to stay away from Lizzie a few times. I didn't realize Lizzie was Lizzie. I was like, okay, is there two of them? Like, you knew she was going to be
two for a while as well.
Okay. And it was a fun episode, really interesting episode. I love where, like, she's starting to have the meshed memories and stuff like that of the things that she's doing. Yeah. She doesn't want to commit the crimes that she's doing, even though she is this evil person. She's supposed to be this evil criminal.
Mastermind
or mass murderer.
Yep.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's this frail, timid damsel in distress sex doll. Really is what she is. She's a sex doll. Like the
She
guy
was
makes her to
totally
be a
used,
sex
yeah.
doll. And it
I
shows
was like,
that a few
damn, that's kind of
times,
dark.
and that yeah, it was a little uncomfortable because she's got feelings for Ryan, like very
Yeah.
much so. But then she's like, "Oh, wait, you cured my headaches. All right, let me pull my neck out here, and then pull my vag out. There we go.
Yep.
Yep. Thanks for that. Let you rape me. Oh,
If you
sorry.
survive, please come again.
Please come again. So it was a little dark and creepy, kind of like that I'm the luckiest girl in the whole world thing.
Yeah.
But we have to remember this was the 80s. It was a much creepier time.
Yes, it was, and a lot of that stuff was on TV, whether you wanted it or not, including Jimmy Smith's naked butt on NYPD Blue. You're welcome, everybody.
Some of us just went, really? Others went, oh, God, that's right.
Yep. You're welcome.
Others went, oh.
Well, Kevin, you can read my lips because Billy Drago in the next episode, I totally loved seeing Billy Drago back as he did basically, oh God, what was that from Mad Hatter? He did the ventriloquist act, and he only survived like about like 2/3 of the episode before he got kicked out of the third act. I'm like, what? You had a brilliant evil asshole in this, and you tried to make him sympathetic, and you basically took him out of the last 10 minutes of the episode.
They probably could have cast him as a different character in another episode.
I think so. I think he would have been perfect in the B episode, honestly. But I like the guy in the B episode.
Yeah, he was really good too. But Billy Drago is, gosh, if you've ever seen, well, anything that he's in, but like say like Delta Force 2. Oh my God, he's scary. He is a very scary actor.
Yeah.
So to have him playing a comedian was probably funny. Not the wisest choice.
Yeah, not his strong suit.
No, because he didn't do well at it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to speak ill, but he did not do well as a comedian.
No, I liked him.
I was put off
like him as the comedian part, like you just brought up. So
yeah, like if you watch Tremors 4, seeing him as a good guy is really cool.
Or
but
Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. for frick's sake.
Well, Bly's not a good guy.
John Bly. Oh, come
but
on,
he is cool.
Briscoe. We'll just call Pete.
Pete's Pace.
Oh my God, you touch Pete's Pace.
Now I want to go watch that. God damn it.
You're welcome, and so do I, God damn it. There's other things I want to watch right now. Including the rest of
that
this
episode
season.
Was yes. But that episode was a homage to Devil Doll, which was on MST, of course. It has the ventriloquist dummy or the vent dummy that is possessed by another soul and is needing more souls to bring it back to life. Not a bad concept. Not a bad concept at all. It got good. It got better. Gosh, once Billy left the episode, it continued to get better. Just not with him in it.
Yeah, I agree.
Not as good as he could have been.
Yeah, I can see that. Ultimately, the cursed item was just a stupid lapel pin, a little floral lapel pin that they kept putting on the dummy. So, God, I forgot what the dummy's name was.
Oscar.
Oh, Oscar. Yeah, that's the one thing that kept Oscar alive. When they finally took that off, it was funny. But ultimately, when they showed like live action of him running around, they had a small person actually handle the role. So thank you, Peter Dinklage. You didn't fuck over Friday the 13th season 2 from 20 years ago. Just
Dude,
saying.
that poor motherfucker just like screwed himself. Everyone in his peer category just like said, fuck you. Thank you for costing us work. Thank you for trying to capitalize and market yourself as being the only one, you selfish son of a bitch.
Pretty much.
Anyway.
Well, we could strike the clock and talk about 13 o'clock, but we already did that, so we're not going to rewind time on that one. Basically, it's a little pocket watch that stops everything at 1 o'clock in a particular location. And we got the gold digger who basically killed her husband, stole this watch from, and tried to make all of this wonderful luck her own. Ended up biting her in the ass. She caught the train. All right.
She caught the Katie.
Yep. I mean,
Sorry,
I
I'm
like
not
the
that
clip.
stuck in
It
my
was an okay episode. I wasn't a big fan of that one. I love the next one, which is the Beehive episode, Sweetest Sting. Not much more I can say about that other than it's one of my absolute favorite episodes. Love the bees, love the beehive. I love the mythology behind what was going on with everything and taking people's souls out, giving it to other people, and making them a different appearance, looking younger. Hey, and you can't talk to your family anymore. Who would take that? That'd be an interesting conversation.
They were all extremely wealthy white men.
Yeah.
That, you know.
Privileged. Very privileged.
Privileged. That got more privileged.
Oh, so,
yeah.
So, I mean, I absolutely love that episode. I could break that down for a long time, but ultimately it's a personal favorite of mine, has always stuck with me. After that, we get to the Playhouse. I love the Ryan's t-shirt that says CCCP on it. It's a Russian t-shirt. Thanks, Ryan. Totally appreciate that, buddy.
Oh, Lordy.
Yep. And I bet not many people notice that, or if you look up like tidbits, you might find that somewhere. But you know, the Playhouse, a bunch of kids are disappearing. The mom is kind of a deadbeat mom. She wants to go hang and bang with some losers just and ignore her kids. So her kids have this fun little playhouse. They bring over neighborhood kids and they disappear, but the kids who are helping the playhouse find themselves very well taken care of. This is a pretty depressing episode, actually.
I grew up abused and I liked this episode. Come on now.
I mean, I really like the episode, but it's pretty dark.
It is. And like they're sacrificing other kids and they've got really good special effects with like kids' faces coming out of the walls through latex, basically.
That was
and
dope.
Like screaming, as you'd see in, let's say, like the first Nightmare on Elm Street, where Freddy's face comes out through the wall over. Was it Heather at that point, or was that Tina?
I think that was Heather.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, it was very much like that scene, and it looked really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have anything bad to say about this episode, other than the little bit of cheesiness of the kids. Like, I'm going to be Count Dracula now.
Yeah.
And the little girl wanting to be, I don't know what.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. I like the setup. I like the premise. It was executed incredibly well. My big question at the very end was, how the hell are they going to fit that playhouse in the vault?
Burn
it just ends?
Burn it.
Yeah, I totally would have burned it. But it's a decent ending. At least most of the kids that you thought were dead actually come back. So there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Ernest Scared Stupid ending, where like all the dolls from 100 years ago get turned back into humans. So it's like, oh, okay, it's a super mega happy ending eventually.
Eventually.
Eventually. So I think that's been my favorite so far. That and now the news.
Yeah, that, the news, and the sweetest sting. Those are my 3 favorites so far. And Kevin, there's only one more episode left. You want to tell everybody about that last episode?
And that's, I can't remember the name of it. It's not standing in front of me, but that's where they go back in time to the Civil War. And the ultimate goal is to make money from old warabilia. And they find it funny that this guy who's like just screwing over all these auctioneers and warabilia collectors and war profiteers, like he's getting all this stuff and they can't figure out how he's getting it, but he's only getting artifacts from certain battles, and it's only the battles that he has pictures to. And then they start to figure that out, like, oh, hey, okay. And so then they start figuring it out that it's the person that bought these pictures. It's the same person that bought this lantern, and the lantern stays lit for 3 hours. So he has 3 hours to murder somebody, go back in time, collect whatever artifacts he wants, murder another person, and return back to the future and blow out the candle. So like 2 lives have to be taken in order for this artifact to work.
Totally blows.
Yeah, and Ryan basically grabs onto his coattails as he's going back in time. And what the guy really wants to look for is this sword that General Lee had broken so he didn't have to surrender it. And his ultimate thought is, oh, well, let's get the sword from him before he breaks it, so then we can sell it as is. Which is kind of this big loophole. And Ryan's even telling him, like, how are you going to sell this sword that's completely worthless because everyone knows the sword is broken? Oh, yeah. So, like, it wasn't the worst.
Can be a hit, everybody.
Yeah, it's a time travel episode. So half of it is a period piece, and they didn't do poorly with it. It was the Civil War, so like they had plenty of props for it. There was no bad actors like overacting, trying to be Southern and stuff like that. He was in a Southern camp the entire time, trying to talk to General Lee, trying to be a Yankee spy. And then try to like softly tell everyone, you're gonna lose. Like, that part was kind of funny. Like, you guys don't win. I'm sorry.
Winning is for losers, Kevin.
You don't get to keep your slaves, y'all. They didn't say it like that, but yeah. You're last. Second place is the first loser.
Ricky, he Bobby.
So, but yeah, it was better than the halfway point for the first season. Like I said,
I would say so.
Better than your black and white montage. It was better than going back in time to England in the 1800s with Dracula. This was not a fictional character. This was all things that take place in real life. So it made more sense. It felt like a natural episode, but it was a filler episode.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of them doing that at the midpoint of the season, but they're about to take a break. If anything, I would have just switched it around with the Playhouse. Let it end with the Playhouse. It's fine. It would have been a good pause and make everybody clamor for more.
I think so, because that was just conceptually a lot of fun.
Yeah. I didn't write down who was the writer of that episode or the director, but everybody did a bang up job on production of almost every episode. Can't say it was nobody phoned it in. It was all excellent work. And I'm enjoying it so much. I really want to get started on the next season, but there's some other things I really want to watch before I get back to it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Or play a game. Like I mentioned to play my video game, but man, it would have been cool if they made a video game out of this show at one point. Just find the treasure and run away.
Find the treasure and run away before it kills you.
Pretty much.
Don't answer it if it asks you a question.
Yeah.
Don't take it if it offers you anything.
No. Even at a discount.
Even at a discount. Oh, I love that radio. Want that radio. We'll give you this. And now the news.
And now the news. And to our new owners. I fucking love that ending.
Marketing at its finest, which was like totally the 80s.
Totally 80s. Any other final thoughts before we wrap it up for the night, Kevin?
No, just that I'm very curious to see what else we see in the last half of the season that we remember. There's one episode that I remember very vividly that's coming up soon that involves a rock star that I'm very curious to see. Is it still just as good as I remember it then? Is there this one scene that I remember being gross? Is it going to be just as gross for me now? Probably not, but again, let's use that imagination and have some fun with it.
Trying to see which episode that was. It sounds familiar. Better Off Dead, Scarlet Cinema, the Mephisto ring, and an old World Series ring. Oh, that sounds. I think I remember that baseball episode. A Friend to the End, The Butcher, Mesmer's Bauble, A Wedding in Black, Wedding Bell Blues, The Maestro, The Shaman's Apprentice, The Prisoner, and Covenant of Darkness. And Covenant of Darkness is Ryan's last episode.
Lame. Because then I'm going to want to watch Freddy's Dead, or Freddy Goes to Hell, or Jason Goes to Hell.
It's Jason Goes to Hell.
I just don't want to watch that. I just don't want to watch that.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I know everybody says, hey, he's the only guy who ever crossed over from the TV show to the movies. That is not true. Guest stars have done it before. It's just he's the first main character that jumped over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several of them had cameo spots that, anyway.
Pretty much. So
he was the last person that did it, to be perfectly fucking frank.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that part at least. Maybe that's what it should be billed as for him. But no, I had a great time. I'm really looking forward to getting into the rest of season 2 and remembering other things I have forgotten or not forgotten.
I'm really enjoying this trip that we're taking with them. I'm glad we're taking it again.
Me too. And so soon too. I know we did the other one just a couple months ago and we had other thoughts for December, but this seemed way more appropriate. And if it wasn't December, we would be doing more Friday the 13th movies this month. That being said,
13th.
Yeah, but we had some plans for some Christmas movies, and we're having some fun with everything. Don't worry, the next Friday the 13th that month we will be doing some Jason movies.
Yes, I still want to do that watch along. We can't show you the movie, but you could watch it in here with us and talk some shit about it.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're a member on our streams, we will be doing watch alongs, trying to figure out one for this month. Just waiting to see if people want to check out Batman Returns with us, or if you want to check out a different movie entirely. Batman Returns is coming up in a couple weeks. Might do that, and then we might do our record right after that, because that will be one episode that is not live. We will be doing that a couple of days ahead of time, because that is Christmas Eve. We are not doing that. Time is better spent with family. So that is how that's going to play out.
You met my family. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen your family. They like to mess with couches and screw with video games.
Yeah, right.
Now that's a Curious Goods episode between the two of them, Kevin.
This X-Men... if this X-Men arcade was cursed, like if it gave me fucking mutant powers, I'd kill people for it. Like, I'd be a Wolverine, sure.
You must insert a quarter every 25 minutes in order for that to work. Or every time you lose a life, you have to plunk in another $1.25 to get 4 more lives.
$1.25, son of a bitch. That's
Do you remember those arcades where they charged like that much for like, hey, you must, in order to continue, you must put in a whole $1 worth of quarters. It was like, oh, you motherfucker.
Oh, they still do.
No, I haven't been
They
to an
still
arcade
do,
in a
except
while,
for
so I
now
don't
you put it
remember
on a
that.
fucking.
Oh.
Now they put them on a card that has a magnetic strip, but it's a fucking redonkulous amount of money. And unless I'm
Lame.
playing a VR game, no game is worth more than like 50 fucking cents a play. I'm
I
sorry,
believe that.
25, 50 cents a play. It shouldn't be more than
Oh,
25 cents a play.
Exactly.
Anyway.
No. Well, and what's not 25 cents to play is hit the subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit the little bell notification for all of our video content. Make sure you like us on the way out. Share us. Spread the word. We like to talk about our favorite classic and cult classic TV shows. We are the graveyard shift of forgotten television shows. And you can punch in, but you can never punch out. We are Nostalgia TV. We will see you next time.
That's the news. We'll be back in a moment with an offer to our newest listeners right after this musical